evening. Welcome to a very, very important weather discussion for this upcoming weekend. Of course, I'm your meteorologist, Stephen DiMartino. This is an NYNJPA weather premium video discussion, also brought to you by our new company, a new venture, Storm Surge LLC. It's going to be an exciting adventure, I'll tell you that much, and certainly something that's going to be good for everyone involved, including you, the premium members, as we get more integration, more data, and more toys for you guys to play with. And also for some of you new members out there, thank you for joining. Thank you for jumping on board and beginning this fun ride. Now, what's not going to be fun is the interaction of this hurricane with this disturbance here. Okay, so let's break this down and really get into the nitty-gritty of what exactly is going on here. So I'm sure you've been following all the models, basically going east, going west. The European model guidance has been the most consistent model guidance, and that's because it's been able to gather the most information about this setup because it gathers more data from the Pacific. And that's going to be really important because the disturbance that's going to be pulling our hurricane in towards the coast, well, it's been over the Pacific. So naturally, the GFS and the Canadian model guidance hasn't exactly been the most consistent model guidance, but it's been shifting steadily west as it's getting more and more data. But let's forget about the models for a minute, and let's look at what's actually happening here. First of all, we have a strong negative NAO blocking scheme starting to set up over the northern Atlantic. It already has set up. And as a result of setting up already, it actually caused a stationary front to linger over the region today, producing a few scattered showers and some variable cloud cover. It's also starting to slow down this entire weather pattern and this upper level disturbance. This is going to be key to our forecast. And of course, it's forcing our hurricane that has just basically rammed right through Jamaica and is rapidly moving towards Cuba to continue to move due north. Now look how large this hurricane is. Look how large of an influence it has. It has a tremendously strong outflow pattern here that is allowing this hurricane to rapidly intensify. It already has winds that are impressive, around 80 miles per hour, and I'm going to get into that a little bit more in just a moment. But you can see what's happening here with this storm. It's rapidly organizing and very, very impressive. This disturbance right here is not going to be a main factor. It's going to shift off into the Gulf of Mexico and not become a factor. Notice that any of the dry air that could have interacted with our Hurricane Sandy, is clearly not doing so, and some of this moisture is starting to fan out. So let's zoom in on Sandy and really get a good look at it. Here's Sandy right now as of 6 p.m. And as of 6 p.m., it has already passed through Jamaica. And look, it's already forming an eye. It has plenty of deep, very cold convection developing around the center of circulation. Basically, what we have here are temperatures around minus 90 degrees Celsius. What that basically means is that the cloud tops are reaching the highest portions of the atmosphere. And what that means is that there's very strong lifting associated with this hurricane. The colder the cloud tops, the stronger the lifting. The stronger the hurricane. In this case, well, this hurricane is starting to become very strong, very well developed, nice outflow boundary, very impressive inflow boundary. Notice the fanning here showing that at the upper levels, there's an anticyclone developing. That means that the air is being able to expel out of the low-level center. So basically, you have moist air being pulled in, and then that moist air is condensing, and the cool air associated with that condensation is being expelled out on the edges of our hurricane, and thus the feathery clouds here. So what we see here with Hurricane Sandy is a rapid movement to the north. Eastern portions of Cuba are in major trouble with this hurricane as it barrels down. I would not be surprised if it goes through a bit of a rapid intensification period before making landfall. Right now I'm still expecting it to be a Category 1 hurricane, but we're going to have to watch this evening, because the way that it is developing and the way that the pressure is already down to 970 millibars, I would not be surprised if it jumps up into a Category 2 hurricane status before making landfall on portions of eastern Cuba. And then once it passes to the north of Cuba, well, all bets are off because really we don't have any type of impacts that will prevent it from re-strengthening over the Bahamas with the very warm waters and for a short time, weak steering currents. It will still continue to move north, but the shear will be relatively light. Let's backtrack a little bit and look at, well, all of the Atlantic here. This is what's left of Tropical Storm Tony. Tropical Storm Tony is a bit of a footnote, but it's an important one because as Tony is being completely torn apart and sheared apart, it's also starting to become entrained in this trough here. This trough is becoming enhanced because of the latent heat energy added by Tony, and as a result, well, that's where it gets interesting because then that's what leads to a very strong high latitude blocking mechanism. Think of this like a big roadblock. With that big roadblock, our hurricane is not going anywhere. It is not exiting out into the Atlantic, at least not very quickly, because it can't, because of the high latitude blocking setting up over the northern Atlantic. But like I said, it's also slowing down the weather pattern over North America, leading to just the right timing for the trough that digs into the Ohio Valley to pick up Hurricane Sandy and drive it right up into the northern mid-Atlantic. So now let's take a look at some of the model guidance because, well, everyone's been talking about model guidance, so let's break it down and at least see what exactly the models are saying. Let's start with the NAM model guidance. Now you might be saying, Stephen, why are we looking at the NAM? The NAM model guidance is, well, the NAM model guidance, but it's pretty good up to 66 hours. Why am I going to go up to 66 hours on the NAM? Because if you look at it, it's a mirror image of the European model guidance. Why am I pointing this out? Because now the NAM, as of this morning, has the data it needs to see exactly what's happening with this disturbance. And of course, we already have the data from the hurricane Air Force reconnaissance. We're going to have even more data this evening, and do not be surprised if you see all the models shift to a very similar forecast of what the European model guidance is showing. So what we have here moving forward over the next 60 hours is our disturbance drives towards the Ohio River Valley, intensifies, and sets up just right to produce a negatively tilted trough and block our hurricane. Now you see this right here, this purple? This is this is basically sinking air, okay? That sinking air is basically a roadblock. It's basically saying you're not going anywhere. You are not going out into the Atlantic because there is a big roadblock right here. That roadblock is a result of this trough and this trough out in the Atlantic. You have two areas of very low pressure, okay, at 500 millibars, lower heights. As a result, there must be a counterbalance. This is basic physics, okay? So if there's a counterbalance, you have to have higher heights right here, or enhanced heights, okay? You have to have a buildup of mass, put it that way. So if you have a buildup of mass here, and you have a buildup of mass here, that means there's only one place for our hurricane to go, right here. At the same time, here's our trough forming a negatively tilted trough, which basically means that it is tilted from southeast to northwest. So that's going to slow down the entire weather pattern and also going to add an interesting dynamic, a cold front that is going to move very slowly. That cold front has plenty of cold air behind it, and that's where it gets very interesting. So let's go to the European model guidance at 66 hours, or basically in this case 72 hours. Pretty much a mirror image, right? Here's our trough, here's our higher heights because of this trough and this trough. Here's our negatively tilted trough in the Ohio River Valley and the upper Midwest, and here's our hurricane sitting and approaching. What's interesting here is we have very cold air diving in behind this cold front. And we have, of course, a tropical air mass with this hurricane and plenty of moisture with it. We are going to be setting up a dynamic where we're going to have a very strong thermal gradient setting up over the East Coast. And that thermal gradient is going to enhance the development of the low pressure system as it goes from tropical to extratropical. I'm going to show you exactly what I mean as we move forward. Here we are on Saturday night, Saturday morning, should I say. This is a key point in the entire forecast, okay? If this trough tried to kick this hurricane out, we really wouldn't have much of a storm at all. But because of this right here, this building of heights, this hurricane cannot exit out into the east. It has to move north because it has no other direction to go but north. And as a result, it leads to its force to phase with this trough. Now, because of that phase that develops, our hurricane, which is right now a warm core low, which means that it's warm from the surface to the top, is starting to become forced to transition into an extratropical low pressure system. That is going to lead to rapid intensification of our low pressure system. And here we are by Monday morning. Okay, Monday morning we jump to this low pressure system intensifying and basically becoming a subtropical low pressure system. Very strong thermal gradient. We go from roughly 12 degrees Celsius to south of Long Island to 0 degrees Celsius over portions of central and western Pennsylvania. And that's going to lead to a very intense storm developing right around the Delmarva. Now, I don't think it's going to be purely tropical at this point. It'll still probably be named a subtropical storm or a hurricane, or they might just keep on calling it a hurricane due to trying to get the public, notified this is a dangerous situation. But we're basically dealing with a setup where we have a very heavy rainfall over the northern mid-Atlantic, very strong winds. How strong? Well, let me show you this at the same time at 120 hours from the European model guidance. This is right here. Let me zoom back in here. Okay, this right here is the wind field on Monday morning at 850 millibars. And we have winds ranging from 65 all the way up to 95 knots. You translate that to the surface and you're talking about hurricane strength winds with gusts well over 75 miles per hour along the New Jersey coast, in Philadelphia and New York City on Monday morning. This is a very bad situation. And quite frankly, it's supported very well by the physics that are setting up with this weather pattern. And you can see everything kind of coming into place even now as we look at the water vapor satellite picture. None of this would be possible if there wasn't a strong negative NAO pattern in place. Let me just put it that way, because then this hurricane would just be kicked right out into the Atlantic. No big deal, no issues, no problems. But because of this blocking scheme, and more interesting, because of the development of Tropical Storm Tony, this storm is going to happen. And it's going to have significant impacts. So let me break down what I'm expecting right now with this storm. On Sunday morning, we'll see rapid increase in clouds. Winds will increase. Rain will develop in the afternoon, become steadily heavier as we move on through the afternoon and evening hours. The cold front associated with this trough is going to start to enhance the rainfall out ahead of it. So look for periods of rain to become heavier and heavier through the afternoon and evening and produce very, very heavy downpours to the point where you're going to have visibility down to zero at times. Winds are also going to steadily increase. By Monday morning, we jump to our hurricane, or perhaps a transitioning hurricane to a subtropical storm, producing very heavy rainfall throughout the entire northern mid-Atlantic. We're looking at winds easily sustained at 60 miles per hour, likely 70 miles per hour with higher gusts, possibly hurricane strength. A lot of this is going to depend, by the way, just how strong this hurricane gets while it's sitting over the Bahamas. With any luck, it goes through a weakening process before it starts dealing with this phase. But we're dealing with very heavy rains again, very strong winds, coastal flooding, wind damage, and if it takes this particular track as shown by the European model guidance this evening, that's going to lead to some significant coastal flooding because the low pressure system will cut up through Cape May and then head up into central and western New Jersey. And that's going to drive a tremendous amount of moisture right into the New Jersey coast. So that's also another thing we're going to have to keep an eye on as we move forward. And also, notice you see this ridge? This ridge means that this low pressure system is not going to be moving very quickly anytime soon. So that rainfall is going to continue. That very heavy tropical rainfall is going to continue on through Monday into Tuesday, slowly starting to collapse. Now, on Tuesday, this is where it gets rather interesting if you like snow. If you're in portions of, let's say, the Appalachian Mountains, like let's say West Virginia, Western Virginia, portions of Maryland, even portions of western and central Pennsylvania, especially in those higher elevations, we're going to see exactly how this cold air wraps around our low pressure system. Because as that cold air is wrapping around, it is going to lead to a changeover to snow. And don't be surprised if you're down by the coast. I mean New Jersey, I mean New York City, Philadelphia, maybe even Boston as the storm lifts north, for some of this rain to transition over to snow, not accumulating, but some snow because of the strong lifting associated with this upper level low that develops. So we're going to have tremendous amount of lifting, and we're going to have very cold air wrap around this storm, this dynamic storm. And so when you have that type of lifting involved in this type of situation, sometimes what you end up with is an unexpected cooling event, a rapid cooling event that could cause temperatures to crash and cause a changeover from rain to snow. And we've seen this last year, different type of system, but still a very dynamic system. And we're dealing with a very dynamic system here with cold air wrapping in. Something to keep an eye on as we move forward. So to wrap up this evening's discussion, this storm is going to have a major impact on the Mid-Atlantic and New England from Sunday afternoon all the way on through Tuesday. If you have plans for Halloween, which most people do, look for improving conditions on Wednesday afternoon. So yes, you will be able to go trick or treat. I am expecting rainfall amounts at least 5 inches, possibly over 8 inches of rain. I wouldn't be surprised if someone sees a foot of rain out of this. Winds are going to be very strong. Coastal flooding is going to be a major problem. This is a serious storm. This is a very serious storm, and we need to be prepared for it. So that is your discussion for tonight. If you have any other questions, please feel free to send them to me. I'll be happy to answer them as quickly as I possibly can. And of course, I'll keep you abreast of the latest situation and latest analysis of this dangerous and impressive storm that will be developing over the next several days. Game on, ladies and gentlemen. Game on. Have a wonderful evening. Again, I'm your meteorologist, Stephen DiMartino. Stay safe out there.